How does, a man such as yourself get into a business like this?
Sheer luck. Well, actually, Gunold was founded by my grandfather in 1927. He started out making the drawings for the so-called punching of embroidery jacquards. That was the terminology they used for digitizing programs to run the embroidery machines. And to make a long story short, of course, during the war, all and everything got destroyed, including all manufacturers of embroidery machines, and was restarted after the war. My grandfather died very early in 1955, and my dad took over. At the time, the company was located in one of the Gasthouses in Stockstad, renting just a couple of rooms. And then in the late 50s, the first part of the facility here was built. At that time still, all we did was produce embroidery designs and the jacquards to run them. In the mid-60s, we started to sell embroidery threads. They came from the same company they still do come from today, which is Bearley. And we built the thread side and added other products such as the non-wovens and needles and scissors and the whole rest of it over the years. And in 1982, after I had graduated from university, I was asked to open an office in the US. So we got started in Atlanta, and we met when? 84?
83.
You know the dates, I'm not good at dates.
I think it was 83.
Early 80s.
Yes. When did you do your first bobbin show? That's when we met.
That's where we met, yeah.
First bobbin show would have been in 83.
Yeah. Okay, so that was it.
At that time, but you're maybe better to tell that story, we met a company called Speed Stitch.
Exactly.
And two people running that,
Right.
Joyce and Fred Drexler.
So tell them about Smart, what we were doing with Speed Stitch.
How far back do you want to go in our history of how we got to be Speed Stitch, or just the fact that we were Speed Stitch at that time?
Let's just start with Speed Stitch.
Okay. Well, Speed Stitch was a company that started in late 1979, early 1980. We made the business plan to take it as a national company. It was based on Joyce's designs. She was teaching people how to do free motion embroidery, just with the zigzag stitch on a sewing machine. And
That was before embroidery machines.
it was really the precursor. The reason I think why the industry came to have embroidery machines was the fact that Joyce was teaching store owners and teachers all over the country how to teach their customers how to do free motion embroidery. And as a consequence of that becoming very popular, the sewing machine companies then decided to make and market sewing machines that would do that for you without having to understand the art side of the process of making machine embroidery with the zigzag stitch. But at the point in 1983, Joyce had created probably 40 or 50 different products, I guess, SKUs at that point. And we went to our first industrial show in Atlanta, which was called a bobbin show. And Joyce came by Chris's booth. At that point, very small company, 10-foot booth, and he was selling Solvay, a water-soluble stabilizer. And Joyce looked at that and said, wow, that's exactly what's needed to be able to do cut work and Battenberg lace at the time, monogramming. So we began to buy that product from Gunold and packaged that under the product name was just called Speed Stitch Wash-Away Stabilizer. But we found half a dozen distributors and several chain stores to sell that product to. So the sales of that just exploded, and Chris, being the sales salesperson that he was, said, if you're selling that much of that product, why don't you sell my thread, which was, of course, Sulky thread, that he was selling on a 1,050-yard spools and on the 5,500, actually it's 5,000 meters, 5,500-yard spools, cones. And at that point, we had already started selling a rayon thread that was made in India, and the sourcing of that was really bad in terms of, you could go 6 months without having white thread, and
it was very hard to obtain quantities.
And it wasn't really a really good quality thread anyway. It wasn't a top quality thread. It was okay, but
it was
not,
okay for couching.
Yeah. So for us, what ended up happening is that the Viking company came to us in 1985 at a trade show, and said, we are coming out next year with a machine that that has a feature called a pictogram. It'll make all kinds of designs just with decorative stitches placed in interesting ways.
Using a zigzag that's tapered or changed in size. That's what they were doing.
So that...
but they were doing this in Sweden, and they had acquired some of Gunold's thread and wanted to know if we could get it for the United States.
Right. So because Chris had been asking us if we would sell his thread, they wanted samples to try on the machines in Cleveland, and if they liked it, I asked them, if you like this thread, would you sell it to your customers? And they, in that meantime, I asked Chris to send samples to them. They loved the thread, and we organized the pricing structure so that we could be a distributor to sell to Viking as the first sub-distributor, if you will, with Sulky thread, and we were off and running. So we
became the national distributors.
So at that point, there was marketing rights. We had the marketing rights from Chris to be able to sell that thread as a distributor, and then of course, we were selling a 1,050-yard spool for $5 a spool, which was quite expensive in 1985.
It was on a little cardboard board.
Yeah. So we kept telling Chris that we really wanted to have a smaller spool that would be able to be sold for a whole lot less. We thought we could sell way more thread, getting the first person to try that thread. So we had these discussions for a couple of years, and finally, as that 1,050-yard spool sold more and more and more, Chris came to me one day and said, if I got the equipment to wind a smaller spool, how much do you think we could sell? In other words, he really wanted a marketing plan put together to do that. And so we did that. We put a plan together and figured out how we would market it, the types of displays, and everything that it would take to be able to market a smaller spool through distributors. And I went to our bank, and my bank assured me that I didn't have enough credit to be able to finance that marketing plan.
No.
And Chris, for his side, was looking at this small company and saying, if I invest all this money, I'm going to have one customer, and that's going to be Speed Stitch, who's going to then sell it to other distributors. So the long and short of that is that we came up with a plan to put together a joint venture partnership where we would each contribute to that partnership the skills that we had. Their side, of course, the partnership really is between Speed Stitch and Gunold USA. So we really don't have any part of the factory process. No. That's part of the partnership. But in the U.S., the Gunold side in the U.S. did all of the shipping and accounting out of their warehouses, and we did all the sales and marketing with our people out of Florida. And so that's really how the company moved forward from 1987. We started September 1st of 1987.
But Speed Stitch started in our garage.
Yeah, exactly.
Just like Microsoft.
So all of this happened because you tried the stabilizer, you loved it, had to have it.
That's right. I wanted that washaway stabilizer. That was just so wonderful. And I got really excited about that. Right, Chris?
Yes, absolutely.
And it made things so much easier because way back then, nobody had stabilizers. We were doing it all with very terrible techniques. But as we started with Chris and the fact that he was dealing with the industrial side of embroidery, we learned about other products that made the individual at home an expert by using these different stabilizers. And it just became a real thing that we just wanted to be the company that always had the best stabilizers and thread, and we do. And so I started writing books about how to use these products, and with my team of Patty Lee and several others, we started to come up with different programs for teaching to the people that own stores, basically. We had this program for a long time called SMART, where teachers would come once a year and learn how to teach different products, and all the sewing machine companies would be involved, and it was quite a production to put on. But we did that for how many years did we do that? 8 years. And it was called SMART, which really didn't, how do you call those letters?
Acronym.
Acronyms.
Yeah. It was Speed Stitch Machine Artist Retreat.
I kind of stretched that to make it SMART, but I thought that was kind of...
The acronym police never caught us.
No, they never caught us.
We were able to get away with that for 8 years.
Yeah, so that was good.
Yeah.
But, so how many books have I written now?
You're on your 21st.
21st, yeah.
Wow.
And
actually, for Sulky 21, we did 2 books for Speed Stitch.
For Speed Stitch also, yeah. So it's just been a real fun time. And then Patty Lee has developed a program to teach teachers again. Once we started with as a Sulky company, we put together a certification training program, and that is offered all throughout the United States and Canada. How many programs do they put on?
Jason's kind of running that day-to-day
12
stuff.
to 15 a year. We've
Yeah.
done as many as 19.
Yeah. So there's been quite a few of those over the years. And how many years have we done it?
Almost 10. I think this is our 9th. Next year we'll be our 10th.
2004 was the first year.
Mhm.
Yeah. So we've taught a lot of people how to teach with the products, as well as just people that are enthusiastic about the products and want to have a fun time with others. So we have brought them all together, and that has turned out to be a very good program for us. But we continue to do how many consumer shows?
23, 24.
A year.
We
And
teach.
so we do teach at those programs as well. So we have really had our products shown to a lot of people, and they've been inspired, hopefully, with what we have, and have gone on to use them and been very happy. And we continue to try to inspire others. And that's about it.
It gets all the way back to the first ad you ran, right?
Oh,
What was that?
Yeah. Well, the first ad we ran for Speed Stitch was the crafty kits for 80 million neglected sewers. And, that was the Speed Stitch technique of being able to do free motion embroidery
Free motion
on a household
embroidery.
zigzag machine.
Yeah.
So.
And now our son goes around and teaches like I used to do, and he's become a very expert free motion embroiderer. And we still want people to do free motion, even though they have embroidery machines. And we have shown people how to use our threads and our stabilizers in so many unique ways. I mean, ways that we never dreamed of 10 years ago. As new products come out, we dream up new things, and it's just been phenomenal. It just really has been such an exciting, fun job to have.